You know that feeling. The world's just huge. So many incredible places, and trying to pick where to go next feels almost impossible sometimes, right? Like choosing one grain of sand.
It really does. It's a great problem to have, but yeah, overwhelming. Every place seems to have something amazing.
Exactly. And that's why this deep dive feels pretty relevant. You shared this article with us, which drills down into, well, the 10 most visited countries globally.
That's right. And it's important to note up front, the data we're looking at here, it's specifically from 2016.
Okay, 2016, good context.
Yeah, so things obviously change year to year, but this gives us a really interesting snapshot of where huge numbers of people were heading back then.
Right. So our mission today is basically to unpack that list from your source. We'll go through the top 10, look at the visitor numbers the article gives,
Uh,
and maybe more importantly, highlight some of the specific things the source mentions that were actually drawing people in, the attractions.
Yeah, think of it as exploring what was popular in global travel, but strictly through the lens of this one article and its 2016 numbers. What was pulling people in at that moment?
Okay, let's get into it. The source actually starts off by talking about just how great vacations are, the benefits of travel.
Right, kind of setting the scene for why people travel in the first place before jumping into the where.
Makes sense. So starting the countdown at number 10, according to this 2016 data, the article says it's Turkey.
Turkey, yes, with 31.3 million visitors logged for that year, based on the source.
And it calls out some specific spots. Bodrum Castle is one, describes it as a really impressive crusader castle.
Hmm. It also mentions the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul, that huge historic market,
Hmm.
and Pamukkale, those famous hot springs with the white terraces.
Ah, yeah.
So it's like history, culture, natural beauty, all mentioned right there for number 10.
Okay. Moving up one spot, number 9, the source lists Thailand.
Thailand, 32.6 million visitors in 2016. And the article adds this little note calling it one of the most romantic countries in the world.
Oh, interesting descriptor. And specific places. It flags the Grand Palace, which is iconic.
And the Phi Phi Islands.
Yeah.
Stunning.
And Patong Beach.
Right. So again, you see that makes the source highlights
Yeah.
major cultural sites plus those famous beaches and islands.
Yeah.
Suggests, culture vultures and people just looking to relax.
Makes sense. All right, number 8 on the list is Mexico.
Mexico. 35 million visitors in 2016. The article has a bit of an aside here that says the author's first thought might be tacos and burritos.
Huh. Yeah, probably relatable for a lot of people.
Right. But it quickly says, there's much more to it than just the food. It specifically mentions Cancun, Los Cabos, and Tulum as key destinations.
Okay, so big names. Beaches, resorts, ruins.
Exactly.
Yep.
The source seems to be pointing towards that blend of leisure, beautiful coastlines, and, of course, the really deep history there.
Gotcha. Okay, creaking up just slightly, number 7 is Germany.
Germany, yeah. 35.6 million tourists in 2016. And the source actually points out that this is 600,000 more visitors than Mexico.
Oh, specific detail.
Yeah, and it also throws in that Germany is one of Europe's 10 biggest countries. Just, another fact.
Okay. And attractions. It mentions top spots in Berlin. The capital doesn't say which ones, just implies the city's a draw.
Right. And then, interestingly, it highlights Europa Park, describes it as kind of Germany's answer to Disneyland for the young and young at heart.
Huh. That's quite a contrast. The source points out major capital city culture and history, and then this huge modern theme park as another big pull.
Yeah, suggests a broad appeal.
Okay, number 6, just edging out Germany, the United Kingdom.
The UK, 35.8 million visits in 2016. Very close numbers there, between 6 and 7.
Really tight. And the article mentions Westminster Abbey calls it a UNESCO site, one of the world's most famous churches.
A global landmark.
And then it also mentions, kind of specifically, the clock tower at Birmingham University, Old Joe.
Yeah, it's interesting that the source includes both, isn't it? Like the absolute top-tier global icon, Westminster Abbey, and then something much more specific, maybe less known internationally, like Old Joe.
Suggests the UK's draw, at least in 2016, according to this source, was maybe a mix of those huge bucket list items and other, perhaps more local, points of interest.
Could be.
All right, now we hit the top 5, and the source signals a big jump in numbers. At number 5, it's Italy.
Italy, yes. And the article really emphasizes the leap here. It says Italy had almost 20 million more visits than the UK.
Wow, that is a huge difference compared to how close 6, 7, and 8 were.
It really is. Makes you wonder what drove that, based on this source's info for 2016.
So what does it mention? Attractions like St. Peter's Basilica, another massive church landmark.
Right, and it generally mentions magnificent sculptures pointing to the art heritage.
And importantly, it adds that locals and past visitors recommend Italian restaurants. Food again.
Definitely. The source seems to suggest for Italy is not just one or two sites, but that whole package, the history, the art, the culture, and yeah, the food driving those enormous numbers.
Can't argue with food as a travel motivator. Okay, climbing up to number 4 is China.
China. The source remarks that it's ranking quite high, which, well, yeah, makes sense given its scale.
Mm-hmm.
And it includes this slightly odd bit acknowledging China's fame for manufacturing.
Right, I saw that.
Yeah.
Kind of pivots from the economic side.
Exactly, before shifting back to the tourism angle.
Yeah,
And the attractions it lists are, well, the giants. The Great Wall of China,
obviously.
the Terracotta Army,
Notable.
and the Potala Palace, just massive, globally recognized historical and cultural sites. Clearly a huge draw in 2016.
Absolutely. Okay, top 3 now. The numbers are getting really big. At number 3, the source puts Spain.
Spain, yeah. A huge 75.5 million visits in 2016. And the article uses this phrase. It says Spain offers attractions of different genres.
Different genres, huh? How does it explain that?
Well, it gives examples, like famous churches for people interested in historical religious buildings.
Okay, historical, cultural.
And then as a contrast, it brings up Ibiza.
Mm-hmm.
Mentions it was once known as the party capital of the world.
Ah, okay, so that different genres thing makes sense. History and culture alongside, well, partying and nightlife.
Exactly. The source seems to be highlighting that really broad appeal Spain had back in 2016.
Got it. And now, number 2. Just squeezing past Spain on this 2016 list, the United States.
The U.S., yes.
Yeah.
75.6 million tourist visits. So really close to Spain's number.
Wow, virtually tied.
And the source includes a pretty notable comment here. It talks about this historical belief, apparently held since previous centuries.
What belief?
There's no poverty in America, specifically meaning the USA.
Huh. That's quite a thing to mention.
It is. And the article actually suggests, quote, this probably is one of the reasons the U.S. was the second most visited country.
So the source is linking visitor numbers to this perceived idea, this historical belief about economic conditions, not just landmarks.
That's what it seems to posit, yeah. It's striking because it's attributing motivation to a perception, an idea, rather than, say, listing the Grand Canyon or New York City. Presumably those are draws, too.
Interesting angle from the source. Okay. Wow. And that brings us to number 1. The most visited country in the world, according to this article's 2016 data, France.
France it is, with a really impressive 82.6 million tourist arrivals that year, quite a bit ahead of the U.S. and Spain.
82.6 million. And the source basically says, yeah, no surprise, Paris is the main hub. States, it goes without saying, it's the most visited city in France.
Pretty much takes that as a given. And the attractions it lists, well, they're the absolute classics, aren't they? The Eiffel Tower.
Of course.
Notre Dame, the Louvre Museum, the Palace of Versailles.
Yeah, the heavy hitters, global icons of art, history, culture. It seems pretty clear from the source why France would top this 2016 list.
Absolutely. Those places have immense pulling power.
So just stepping back for a second, looking at these numbers the source provides, starting around 30 million for Turkey and going all the way up to over 80 million for France, it really gives you a sense of scale for tourism, even just focusing on these top 10 from that one year, 2016.
It really does. And looking at the kinds of attractions the source highlights for each one. You've got ancient castles, Crusader history, hot springs, royal palaces, island beaches, tacos. Well, okay, beyond tacos.
Yeah.
Major cities, theme parks, UNESCO churches, university clock towers, famous sculptures, Italian food, the Great Wall, terracotta soldiers, Portola Palace, Ibiza nightlife, and this idea of American opportunity, apparently.
Right.
And then the Parisian icons. It's just such a diverse range of things the source points to.
Yeah, it's definitely not just one thing drawing people in based on this list. It's history, nature, culture, fun, food, maybe even perception.
Exactly. It seems popularity, at least as captured by this 2016 list in the article, comes from a whole mix of appeals.
So we've done a pretty rapid tour there through the top 10 most visited countries according to the 2016 data in the source you shared. We've seen the sheer scale of the visitor numbers and got a flavor from the article's perspective of what was drawing people in specific sites, cultural experiences, natural beauty, maybe even certain ideas or reputations.
Yeah, it's a specific snapshot, but a fascinating one.
So thinking about everything, this particular source covered the variety of attractions mentioned, from ancient wonders to modern party spots, from natural landscapes to iconic city landmarks, and even that comment about perceived opportunity. What does this specific 2016 picture suggest to you, the listener, about the different kinds of things that really motivate people, millions of people, to travel the globe? What does that mix tell us about why we explore?